Hi. So I have a few things I want to talk about. Kind of one. Well, maybe more than one. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a lot of these, but there might be a few. There are things on my mind that I want to, get off my chest. This one's about holy deception. And the reason it occurred to me is because, I look sometimes at maybe on the news or an interview or television or whatever, a journalist interviewing a cult member and trying to get a straight answer from them. And they're not going to get one. Sometimes the journalist knows it and sometimes they don't. And I want to address why that happens. So let's take NXIVM, for example. Let's say that a group of NXIVM loyalists are interviewed about something. They're not going to tell the total truth. There's going to be a whole bunch of, lies by omission, straight out lies, just twisting of a whole bunch of things. And the reason is because what they're defending is a higher order or a higher principle. So how did that happen in NXIVM? Well, it was laid in the framework very, very early on. In the very first intensive, there was an educational module called Honesty and Disclosure. And honesty and disclosure really screwed up those words a lot. Did a lot of sort of redefinition. Actually, all of the tech did redefinition. But one of the question sets that's really interesting that I wanted to mention was from that module was the following. And so question sets were basically, the trainer, would ask a bunch of questions, people would break out, have a conversation and trying to figure out what are the answers to these questions. It was this exploration, and then what would happen afterwards, once everybody was thoroughly confused, is the trainer would then give the debrief, the truth. So one in particular was the following. What is honesty? Is not honest dishonest? Is dishonest bad? Can one ever be 100% honest? Fascinating questions. Now, one of the examples they used in looking at this whole concept of is being dishonest a bad thing was the trainers would use an example from the Second World War. They would say, look, here's the scenario. You're in the Second World War. The Germans, I should say the Nazis, are looking for the Jews. And you are hiding Jews in your basement. This is the scenario they proposed. Now, the Nazis come knocking on the door. Do you say, oh, yes, I have, Jews in my basement? No, you lie. Don't be honest. If the authorities are looking for somebody and they're going to hurt them, don't tell them they're here. Now, that's pretty reasonable. In that scenario, there's no way I'm going to tell the Nazis, yes, I'm hiding these people you're trying to kill in my basement. Of course not, I'm going to lie. So that was sort of the scenario that was proposed, and you go, yep, that makes perfect sense. So is dishonest bad? Well, not necessarily. And there was a lot of not necessarily's in the NXIVM tech. In 2017, October exactly, I began writing a blog, which was my attempt to leave breadcrumbs for people that were still on the inside. It was October 2017. And what I was trying to do was help people on the inside who were perhaps wavering, who hadn't considered certain things, help them understand how these things work, the pattern of how a cult works, the pattern of how narcissistic abuse works. And one of the episodes was called, I think it was called Holy Deception, maybe not, but it was about holy deception. I think it was episode 25, and I'll put a link in for that. And in this episode, I talked about lying to protect the leader, lying to protect a higher principle, a higher order. And I quoted something from Margaret Singer from her book, Cults in Our Midst. And it says, cults tend to have a double set of ethics. Members are urged to be open and honest within the group and to confess all to the leader. That is true. At the same time, members are encouraged to deceive and manipulate non-members. The overriding philosophy in cults is that the ends justifies the means, a view that allows cults to establish their own brand of morality outside normal social bonds. For example, one large group introduced the concept of heavenly deception. Another introduced transcendental trickery. And some of the neo-Christian groups introduced terms such as talking to the Babylonians, or refer to outsiders as the Systemites. In fact, in Nixium, you would talk about those that had not taken the tech as being disintegrated. Because if you took the tech, you were more integrated than them. So you can't share everything with them because they're too disintegrated. Language such as this, talking to the Babylonians, sharing with the suppressives. Language such as this is meant to justify a double set of ethics, making it acceptable for members to deceive non-members. I also wrote in here, an FBI report on the Unification Church states, one of the central doctrines is what they call heavenly deception. It basically says that to take from Satan what rightfully belongs to God, you may do almost anything. You may lie, cheat, steal, or kill. So, yeah, it's pretty common in cults. So, let's say you were interviewing, some loyalists who are still loyal to Nixium. And they started a movement to basically try to assist incarcerated individuals who should not be incarcerated, unfairly incarcerated. Now, that's their cover story. And what are they actually about? They're actually about one individual who's incarcerated. But they can't say that, so they have to, make it seem like it's a whole movement they're trying to build, which, FYI, is a shifter strategy for those that know what that is. So the journalists are asking the questions, and they've, blowing smoke up their ass about, incarcerated individuals and making it about this much, much, much bigger thing. And it's not about the much bigger thing for them. It's about one individual they're trying to get out. Their highest principle is the leader. That's the most important thing. So it does not matter if you lie, as long as you protect the leader, is their thinking. I see this in political systems as well. Let's take our political system in the U.S. There are individuals in politics who are protecting a higher order. Jeff Sharlet wrote about it in his book, The Family. So, people see lawmakers or members of government trying to make decisions or trying to enforce laws that make zero sense on a humanitarian level. And the reason is because they don't care about humanitarian whatever. What they care about is their devotion. Some of these people believe that the worse things get, the better, because eventually the trumpets will sound, Armageddon will happen, and Jesus will, come down from a cloud and he will rule the earth. So they make decisions based on that higher principle. So it doesn't matter if they lie, if they're deceitful, and people seem to me to be so frustrated when they listen to these politicians who are clearly lying, and they can't understand it. But what you need to understand, they are speaking like cult members. Their vision is in a whole nother thing. It's some holy principle, some fantasy that they have in their mind, and the decisions that they want to make are to uphold and serve that principle. Which I see a lot of currently, which is usually, Jesus is coming back, so it doesn't matter what we do. So I think it's really important when you're listening to fanaticism, when you're listening to, cult members being interviewed on television or being written about, just know that they have a complete inability to be completely honest. Because if they were completely honest, the ruse would be very apparent. It sounds really kooky to say, well, I'm protecting my leader because he's the next coming of whatever. It sounds kooky, and they know it sounds kooky because they've been trained. The people outside don't understand it like we do. So don't say that shit, it sounds crazy. Say this shit over here. So they won't say, the crazy shit. I mean, I don't think you're going to hear people in politics, in Congress say, well, this is important because the trumpets are about to sound. Or this is important because the more we destroy everything, the closer we are to Armageddon. And you people, you non-believers don't realize that when that happens, Jesus, white Jesus, is coming back. So I understand the frustration when they don't seem logical, but they're not. Well, they are. They have a different logic that they're using, and it's good to understand that. So sometimes you're trying to attack their logic, but you have the wrong tools. You need to understand what their beliefs are that are causing them to say the things that they're saying. So, yeah, I think there's going to be more. Another day. I have a lot more to say. I have to talk about, cult, information control. There was something else I wanted to talk. Also, why we trust people that seem so confident. Like, what the hell is going on? And also, I want to talk a little bit about a concept that happens in cults where people say, well, don't trust that person because they're emotional. Like somehow emotionality is bad. If they're non-emotional, you can trust what they're saying. If they're emotional, you can't trust what they're saying. So there's a lot of ground I think I want to cover. So I hope this helps you understand some of what you're dealing with when you're listening to cult members speak. It's garbage. A lot of it's lies. Just know that. They are serving some unseen principle that only they can see.